which terrible NFL teams from 2024 will rise to the top of their division in 2025. Welcome, football fans, to another BLV NFL rankings video. In this video, I rank every worst to first candidate for the 2025 NFL season. That is the likeliness that the last placed team in each division from 2024 places first in their division in 2025. Gronk, spike the like button. Don't be a jabroni, and subscribe for more NFL offseason rankings just like this. And let's hop into the video. Beginning with the team that I think has the least chance to go from worst to first. And there's a lot of determining factors here. It's not just how good is a team. It's how good is their competition. So, at number 8, I have the New York Giants to finish last to first. The reason for that is the New York Giants have to overcome the Super Bowl champs, the Philadelphia Eagles. The most talented team in football, the Philadelphia Eagles. With Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, the best offensive line in football, and still arguably the best defense in football. And they have to do it with a murky, unknown, ambiguous quarterback situation. That's really hard. When you don't have one quarterback and you have 3, you usually don't have any. That's typically the rule. So is Russell Wilson the guy? Maybe to start, but is he going to be the guy the whole year? Unlikely. Jameis Winston maybe can win you a couple games, but he'll also lose you a couple games. Is Jackson Dart going to be the guy the whole year? Maybe that's their best solution to find their way to the top. If Jackson Dart just becomes an absolute stud from day one, that's probably the best solution for the Giants to actually make that leap. I will say, the Giants on paper have a phenomenal pass rush and a phenomenal defense. Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Abdul Carter, right? Like, you look at this thing, Kayvon Thibodeau, and I love what they did with Javon Holland. I love what they did with Paulson Adebo. I love the additions that they've made. And I do think that this team will be more competitive. I do think that this team will be better in 2025 than 2024. It's going to be better from a defensive secondary perspective. It's going to be better from a quarterback perspective. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, could the Giants finish third? Could they finish second? The likeliness that they're able to leap Dallas after they just acquired George Pickens. The Commanders, who made the NFC Championship last year and have Jaden Daniels, arguably the best quarterback in the conference, and the Eagles, the Super Bowl champs, is just completely unlikely. Not only do they have to get past the best team in the league, but they also have to get past Dallas and Washington first. I just don't see how that happens. That's why I have them in last. At number 7, for similar reasons, the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, the Raiders do have a good quarterback. I like Geno Smith. They do have a formidable head coach and coaching staff. Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly. I'm excited to see what they bring. But the Raiders are still extremely flawed as a roster, and they play in a division in which has the dynasty of this era, the Kansas City Chiefs, the AFC champs of last year, the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Steve Spagnuolo, Chris Jones, Travis Kelce. You know what it is, right? The Chiefs are consistent and they're going to win. And then if for some reason the Chiefs have a Super Bowl hangover, right? And they fall apart and everything goes wrong for the Chiefs and Mahomes gets injured. You got the Chargers, who should be better than last year under Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert. And then you have Sean Payton and Bo Nix and one of the best defenses in the league in the Denver Broncos. So the likeliness that the Raiders are able to get past and get over the best team of this era, the Chargers and the Broncos, is pretty unlikely. Could they leap from 4th to 2nd? It's possible, right? Like, you've got Ashton Genty. I don't mind the O-line. I think it's underrated. You've got Brock Bowers entering year 2. maybe they hit on some of these draft picks. And the defensive line is really talented. Max Crosby led with Christian Wilkins back. But I just don't see a way that they overcome every hurdle in this division. Like I said, even if a Super Bowl hangover strikes, it's unlikely that the Chargers are also not good. The Broncos also are not good or injured. Like, it's just unlikely. So the Raiders, they should be better, just like the Giants, but they're not going to win their division. I'm sorry. Then we have at number 6, the Cleveland Browns. The reason the Browns are ahead of the Raiders and the Giants, I think you can make an argument that if you took the quarterback out of each team in the AFC North, that the Browns have just as good of a roster as any in the AFC North. Like, you could easily swap the Ravens roster with the Browns roster and add or remove Lamar Jackson, and that team would finish first in the division. Now, the problem with the Browns is that they don't have a solidified quarterback. Is it going to be Dylan Gabriel? That might give them the most upside and also experience, being that he played a long time in college. He's going to be ready to go at the NFL level. And, most passing touchdowns of all time in the college level, second most passing yards of all time, can execute Stefanski's offense very well and might be a sneaky option for the NFL to deal with. At the same time, Shedeur Sanders could also be a bit of a steal of a draft pick if you believe in him. I don't see how Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett are winning this division. That being said, Joe Flacco did take the Browns to a pretty successful season a couple years ago. And at the same time, this team, this staff, this coach, Kevin Stefanski, has actually won this division before. And that was because, the Bengals weren't quite there yet. The Steelers declined by the end of the season. And then, of course, you had the Ravens. Lamar was probably hurt that season. I can't quite recall, but I'm pretty sure. So the most likely scenario in which Cleveland actually wins this division, you've got 2 quarterbacks that are awesome in Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. That's hard to overcome by itself, especially considering your best option might be Dylan Gabriel or a 5th-round pick, Shedeur Sanders, or an old man, Joe Flacco, right? Like, those are your best solutions at that position. You are behind the 8 ball, to say the least. Literally 8 being Lamar Jackson. But at the same time, they've won the division before. Like, this coach has won this division before. And then Lamar and Joe Burrow do get injured quite often. So this is actually more likely than, let's say, Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. Then at the same time, the Steelers, do they have a quarterback yet? Is Aaron Rodgers going to be their guy? They just traded George Pickens. What is going on in Pittsburgh? Nobody really knows. Nobody really knows what's going on with Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I will say, though, for Cleveland to absolutely leap all 3 of these teams, for Burrow and Lamar to get hurt, for the Steelers to not figure it out, that is asking for a lot. That being said, Cleveland is extremely talented. They, without a doubt, could have the best defense in the division. I wouldn't even blink, right? And they also have a good offensive line. So these things are possible. They could also find the next Russell Wilson, potentially, with one of their draft picks. But I don't know if all of these things are happening at the same time, which is where Cleveland kind of loses their argument. At number 5, I have the Carolina Panthers. Now, you could say that the Saints were last because I think they had the same record, and I think some people might bring up the Saints, some people might bring up the Panthers. Personally, the Panthers picked ahead of the Saints. So I went with the Panthers because they had the 8th pick and the Saints had the 9th pick. But if you went with the Saints on this list, that's fine. I just think the Saints are less interesting. I think the Panthers have more opportunity in 2025 to go from worst to first if you categorize Carolina as that team. Now, the Panthers do have a young quarterback entering year 3 and potentially a big leap season. Bryce Young, right? He played the best football of his career so far very late in last year's calendar, which also makes you believe that a jump is very possible. They added a big-time weapon in T-Mac to help out the rest of their offense and receiving core and just change the dynamic of their offense in general. He gives them a big target, a guy that can create explosive plays and win one-on-ones. You still have Adam Thielen, who's very reliable. You've got guys like Jalen Coker and Leggett to add that versatility and also that explosiveness. And then the run game is very capable. I wouldn't be shocked if it was the best run game or one of the best run games in this division. And then you have a defense that should be mightily improved. They do have good coaches on each side of the ball. I believe in Canales and Evero on their respective sides of the football. You get Derek Brown back with J.C. Horn in the secondary. And then you've got Morig added to the mix at safety. And you also added guys like Tershawn Wharton, Bobby Brown, Clowney hopefully healthier this year, along with the draft picks that you made in the second and third round to boost your pass rush up. So I think the Panthers could be a sneaky team this year because I thought they went toe-to-toe with the Bucs late last season. I thought that they looked really good. They went to the wire with the Chiefs. There were numerous games late last season where the Panthers kind of proved that they'll be sticking around this season and they'll be a little bit better than people think. So the Panthers wouldn't shock me because the Bucs are the best team definitively. The Falcons are seen better than the Panthers. And the Saints, I think the Panthers are already kind of ahead of the Saints. I look at the Falcons, we don't know if their quarterback's any good. So that's first thing. I don't think their coach is very good. So that's another huge question mark, right? So that's easily a team that they could jump if things go their way. And Bryce Young and Canales are just better than their head coach and their quarterback. And then the first place, the Bucs do have a lot of older players like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Levante David. If these guys slow down, on top of Liam Cohen leaving being an effective reason for why the Bucs slow down this season, I wouldn't be shocked, or Baker just kind of comes back down to earth a little bit. If Bryce ends up being the best quarterback in this division this year, he was a first overall pick, I wouldn't be that surprised. So that's why I would say that Carolina could actually win their division. That being said, their defense has to get a lot better. T-Mac has to be legitimate. And Bryce Young has to continue to be consistent for Carolina to actually make this happen. At number 4, I have the Tennessee Titans. Similar but different reasons to the Panthers, right? The Titans play in a very weak division, the AFC South. So do the Carolina Panthers. There are plenty of questions to go around in the AFC South. I think there's maybe even more in the AFC South than there are in the NFC South. I would look at Tennessee right now as starting as the worst team in their division. That being said, Jacksonville was horrendous last year. They have a new head coach. I don't really feel like they improved many aspects of their roster outside of maybe adding Travis Hunter. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence is back, but Trevor Lawrence has been extremely inconsistent, and I would quite frankly call him overrated, right? There is a chance Cam Ward is already better than Trevor Lawrence this year, and Cam Ward is the biggest piece of the unknown. He's the biggest wild card in this ranking. Cam Ward could be excellent as a rookie. What if he's the next Jaden Daniels? What if he's the next CJ Stroud as a rookie? What if he is the guy that's going to take the league by storm this year? And what if that's complemented by a decent running game with Tony Pollard and Spears, a career resurgence from Calvin Ridley, and a pretty solid defense? Last year, the Titans had a pretty solid defense. They were second in yards allowed. So what if the Titans put it together and really we're looking at this division? Anthony Richardson sucks, so the Colts don't really have a quarterback. Despite them having a better roster than Tennessee, there's questions at quarterback that will lead to inconsistency. Jacksonville's roster, I think, is worse or on par with Tennessee's, and they are just very inconsistent as a franchise and very unreliable as a whole, and they're inviting a new head coach. And then also, the Texans, who are loaded, totally better than the Titans on paper, but they do have one fatal flaw, the offensive line, which could allow their team to spiral out of control and lose games they shouldn't lose, especially if CJ Stroud continues to regress because he's not protected. So Tennessee could take advantage of this situation. Poor quarterback play from Indianapolis, unknowns in Jacksonville, and the Texans' offensive line. If the Titans can get more reliable play from their offensive line, balance offensively, a superstar rookie quarterback, and a solid defense, they could win the division. So that's why I have them at number 4. At number 3, da Bears. Chicago is at number 3. Now, this one's tough to sell because they obviously have to go from worst to first and overcome 3 of the best teams in the NFC. They have to be better than the Packers, the Vikings, and the Lions. The Lions won 15 games and the number 1 seed in the NFC last year. The Vikings nearly were the number 1 seed and won 14 games. And the Packers have been in the playoffs 2 years in a row and won 11 games last year. So that is a hard sell. That being said, the Lions lost a bunch of coaches. Ben Johnson in particular is going to be very impactful potentially on the potency of the Lions offensively and Jared Goff's performance. Second, the Vikings have J.J. McCarthy, a complete unknown at quarterback. And third, the Packers, they benefited from a very weak schedule last year. And honestly, like, is Love really as good as we think? And their defense is just okay. It's nothing special. If you look at Chicago, there's reason to believe that Caleb Williams could become the generational player that we thought he might be under Ben Johnson. Coaching can change a lot of things, and it could change Chicago. You have Dennis Allen, you have Ben Johnson. That could change both sides of the football into top 10 units. You have a ton of talent on both sides of the ball, particularly in the secondary of Chicago and the weaponry of the Bears offense. They totally drastically altered the offensive line. Jonah Jackson, Drew Dahlman, and Joe Thuney. They upgraded with Luther Burden. They added, Colston Loveland. Those are two dynamic young playmakers. With DJ Moore and Rome Odunze entering year 2, only expected to get better. Caleb just being confident behind a protection unit that's going to be better in 2025 would also increase his ability. So who knows? The Bears could just bring things to the table that people aren't expecting. From a defensive philosophy standpoint, from an offensive play calling perspective, they could just take the league by storm. And Caleb could be the best quarterback in this division, and it wouldn't really even be that surprising. Would it? If Ben Johnson had an incredible season and was the best coach in this division, would it be surprising? No. If Dennis Allen was the best defensive coordinator in this division, love Brian Flores, but it wouldn't be that surprising. You really think about the main elements of winning, and Chicago could dominate in all three facets. It's very possible. So despite the competition being crazy, I still think Chicago has a realistic chance of this happening if they hit their high point in each of these areas. Number 2, the New England Patriots. My Patriots could go from worst to first after picking 4th in the NFL draft because they have totally changed their roster. And what really I think the only thing that would have to happen is Buffalo slips up or Josh Allen gets injured. Because I think other than that, the Jets, they suck. The Dolphins are drastically going downhill, and I'm very concerned about their future. And honestly, all that would have to happen is Drake May lives up to somewhat of the promise we would expect. Their defense, with all the added additions from Robert Spillane to Carlton Davis to Milton Williams to Harold Landry to et cetera. Then you look at the coaching, like Mike Vrabel has gone toe-to-toe with the Bills before. We've seen Josh McDaniels, do great things offensively. What if Gerard Mayo was really that terrible? What if he was what was holding back the Patriots from not being a top 5 worst team, but from being like a somewhat competitive team last year, especially with what Drake May looked like as a rookie? What if Gerard Mayo was just that terrible? What if Mike Vrabel makes that big of a difference? We've seen it year in and year out in the NFL, how coaching makes a difference. Their defense could be pretty dominant. They have one of the best corner duos in football. They can play man, they can play zone. And then offensively, they're going to have way more explosiveness. Stephon Diggs, Kyle Williams, right? Travion Henderson. They could actually move the ball and score in a variety of ways this year, especially if Drake May ascends the way that we think. So really all that it would take is Allen to miss a few games, the Patriots to steal one of them, and maybe the Bills to just be like an 11-win team, and the Patriots could really explode onto the scene with a future superstar quarterback and win 12 games, and all of a sudden they win the division. Would it be that shocking? I don't necessarily think so, because really there's only one team in the way, in my opinion, that really makes this a problem, because I don't see Miami winning more than 8, and I don't see the Jets winning more than 5 or 6. So the Patriots are definitely top on this list, or near top on this list. And the number 1 team, I'm wearing the shirt for a reason, the San Francisco 49ers. The more that I actually look at the NFC West, the more that I actually analyze the teams and rosters, and the more that I understand the San Francisco 49er history under Kyle Shanahan, the more that it feels like the Niners could reclaim this division in 2025. And it's actually might be my prediction, because the Niners have easily the easiest schedule in football. And the Rams, although in their division have a much more difficult schedule. And the Rams are seen as the favorite of this division because they have Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford. They won the division last year. They went toe-to-toe with the Eagles. They have a young, promising defense. There's reasons to really like the Rams. But the Niners were not that long ago, like by far the best team in this division, dominating this division, dominating in terms of winning their division, right? Like the last couple of years. So would it be crazy to say that the Niners just stayed healthy? They got a little bit more turnover luck. They got a little bit more schedule fortunate bounces here and there. And they were able to win this division. Or maybe Stafford misses a couple games, which could happen. Kyler misses a couple games, which definitely could happen. The Seahawks, just Sam Darnold does not really work for them. Like, there's a lot of reasons why the Niners could win this division, including all the studs they have. Christian McCaffrey could return to MVP form. The best tight end in football, George Kittle. The best left tackle, Trent Williams, could reascend to that position, right? Like, Brandon Ayuk could be what he was 2 years ago. Ricky Pearsall could be the first-round pick that we thought he was. Jawan Jennings continues to shine like he did last year. Like, you've got Fred Warner, the best linebacker in football, arguably. You've got young, promising players across the defense. So I could easily see how the Niners benefit from an easy schedule where they don't really play any contenders. The Rams have to play a first-place schedule where just in the NFC, they have to play the Lions, which the Niners don't play. They have to play the Eagles, which the Niners don't play, right? Like, they have to play these teams, the Bucks, okay? So the Niners don't have to do that. They play the bad teams. So that's where they could take an edge. And also the Niners consistently have beaten the Rams. I know last year was kind of a funky situation there, but they have consistently beaten Sean McVay and the Rams. They have consistently beaten the teams in their division. Last year was just not the case all around in multiple areas because of the injuries and because of the derailment that they had in their Super Bowl hangover year. But it's easily foreseeable that they could get back to where they were a couple years ago. And it wouldn't be that shocking. So that's why the 49ers are at number one. No small reason because of Kyle Shanahan, too, who easily could have this team bouncing back big time. There it is, guys. My ranking for the worst to first candidates in 2025. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, spike the like button. Don't be a jabroni and subscribe. Peace.